to already start the program, we would like to invite the Executive Director of Manila Observatory, Father Jose Ramon Villarin, SJ.
Thank you. Thank you, JV. Let me just begin formally first. Doctors, Doctors Melissa Hart, Christopher Leonard, Chingyun Duan, Fiba Francis, Dorcas Kalele, Narelle van der Wel, and to our scientists and students, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome. There, I said it. We are in this place called Hayden Hall. And I know I am old because Father Frank Hayden was my teacher in radiation and optics in this place. Father Hayden, who's a Jesuit priest like I am, was educated at Harvard and then came home to the Philippines to teach. And so that's how I guess, got into this field. Anyhow, Hayden Hall. Father Hayden, he might be listening right now. So, pressure. I liked him though. We called him Father Cream Puff. We are truly happy to welcome the WCRP Academy Steering Group here in Manila Observatory. And we consider it a privilege, not a burden. Although maybe some of the staff might feel that. It is a privilege to host the support unit of the World Climate Research Program Academy. As mentioned by Professor Dr. Detlef Stammer in his letter to me, the Academy is crucial to promoting, and I quote, climate science training activities around the world, especially in the global south, unquote. And we thank our very own Dr. Lau Hamero here for shepherding this connection between WCRP Academy and the Manila Observatory all throughout. Finally, we give birth. If this privilege of service is possible, it is because of Lau's efforts. The work of the Academy is something dear to us. And why? For several reasons. One is that, first, climate science in this part of the world appears to be in a constant state of restart. I was about to say flux, but we're always restarting. We are only beginning to collect good data, information, knowledge, again. And this is unfortunate because, first, these parts of the world covered by the global south, the tropics, the subtropics, are one of the least known parts of the planet as far as climate science is concerned. Unfortunate because, well, if you want to study typhoons, you come here. We get 20 of them every year. We're on one pole, one end of the ENSO, the El Nino Southern Oscillation Cycle. And sea level is rising the fastest in this part of the world, the Western Pacific. The challenge has always been consistency, stability, sustainability. You would think that, we've been at this since 1865. 1865, you'd think we'd be good at it by now. And actually, we were. We had very good data, information, knowledge from 1865, even during the Philippine-American War, Philippine-Spanish War, Revolution, up to World War II. So during the American Commonwealth period, there was rigor, and there was reach, there was discipline. Unfortunately, World War II destroyed much of 80 years of hardware and software and capacity. In fact, the reason why we are here is because we have been sustained, supported by war reparations. After the war, the Jesuits went to Washington, D.C. to lobby support for starting the Manila Observatory again. In this part of the world, and just to name one disaster, typhoons, they actually increase vulnerability, which worsens risks, which then compounds vulnerability, which then compounds risk, and so forth and so on, in a destructive, vicious cycle. I saw this firsthand last year again. Every year, I try to make a retreat in a place called Mirador, Baguio. We have a station, it's about 5,000 feet, about a kilometer high. So it's cool place. I was there praying, and I don't know why, I'm really lucky because a typhoon hit Luzon. And while praying, I was also looking at our data. But then power went out, communication lines were down, there was no water, no light for 3 days. So data, sayang. I mean, what a pity that there was no data in such an event, an extreme event. There is, of course, also developing country realities, like the slow burn, not not dramatic, but the slow burn of poor governance, poor capacity, poor health, an environment that takes the back seat when it comes to economics and politics. We don't really need PISA to tell us that we have a problem. In a way, we are hopeful, therefore, that climate science is a way to teach science. A way to teach science not in isolation with other disciplines, which is why we call it transdisciplinarity. Not just multi or interdisciplinary work, but work that goes beyond the disciplines and reaches out to civil society, private sector, the public sector. The academy's work is also something important to us because we know enough to acknowledge that science is not enough. Data, information, knowledge, they do not easily translate into action. We know what needs to be done. Father Bobby Yap, who is the president of this university, he's an environmental economist. He says, you climate scientists, you step down. It's time for the economists now to work. We kid each other and says, the science is pretty much there already. He says that, of course, in jest. But I know we know enough to say climate scientists cannot just keep telling people that the sky is falling. I myself with Tony here have gone around and prophesying about the tragedies that are about to happen. I know that this can paralyze people. The fear can actually just lead people to depression. We know we need to communicate and work more closely with others. and I believe we are doing so here. Klima, which is headed by Tony Lavinia, is the interface we created between science and society. And Tony and team have been instrumental in the climate negotiations for 3 decades now. At the Manila Observatory, we always ask what is, or more importantly, who is the science for? And that is why we resonate well with the mission of the WCRP Academy, which is to promote climate science training all over the world, especially in the global south, especially where the needs and the impacts are greater. We realize that the next meeting of the Joint Scientific Committee will be in Paris in 2025. But I wish to assure you, I have yet to write that letter. I wish to assure you that our offer still stands. Our offer to host one of the annual meetings of the JSC here in the Philippines. Maybe not in Manila, where it is just like Paris or New York. Maybe in some place like Bohol. We at MO have a stake in the success of the Academy's mission. In some way, the world has a stake as well in what we are launching today. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Villarin. And now let's hear a message from the Associate Director for Climate Policy and International Relations of the Manila Observatory and the Head of the Klima Center, Dr. Antonio Gabriel M. Lavinia.
I like that picture. I'm smiling. Uh, I have been in climate justice work for more than 30 years, and I'm still smiling. So, for the younger people here, you have to be a happy warrior in this dealing with the climate crisis, which has been going for a while already. Dr. Hart, colleagues from WCRP, and of course from Manila Observatory and from other organizations, welcome and good afternoon. Um, as a policy person, I'm actually as old as Father Jet, so who talked about how old he is in relation to Father Hayden. You can lock me in to my age by knowing that I was in the first conference of parties in 1995 in Berlin, and has attended at least 25 of the 28 conference of parties since then. I have actually rotated in various roles as a lawyer, as a high government official, lead negotiator for the Philippines and developing countries, as an academic, as a technical, technocratic person working for international organizations, but all the time, always as a climate justice advocate. Because from the very beginning when I started doing this work, it was actually also academic. I did my doctoral dissertation in Yale Law School on the climate negotiations that was ongoing then. Instinctively, I knew this was about justice between developed and developing countries, between poor and rich people, between present and future generations, and actually between species. So I saw that instinctively, and that has guided my work since then. Just one more historical thing about this place. There are spirits here, I swear. Maybe Father Jet doesn't know that because he's a very holy person, and but the others, and I wonder why the people haven't told Father Jet that there are spirits here. I don't know if the scientists believe that, but once I lost my cell phone, and the administrative and facilities people, oh, it's Zoe. They even have a name for it. Do you know that, Afe? No, they don't tell you. They even have a name, Zoe, a little girl apparently who runs around here, and So I just say, Zoe, return my phone, and then it was there somewhere. I'm sure you just forgot to put it there. That's a side. That's a scientific explanation. But there are good spirits here because it's really through the years, the more than 159 years we've existed. We're now on our 160th year, and we're planning to close our celebration when we have the assembly, right, in 2026. That will be uh, the, the, the final celebration of our 160th year. But we've had really good people in this building and before that in Manila. Um, and I think it's very important when you're working on the climate crisis, whether it's from a scientific point of view or a policy point of view, that we see this long timeline from the past and to the future. And I was telling our colleagues earlier from WCRP when we first met them that when I teach a course on climate negotiations, what I do is I juxtapose, and it's actually in my memoir if you read Father Jan, which will be launched soon. I juxtapose the IPCC reports from 1990 to the policy decisions that the world makes as a result or influenced by that IPCC report. So IPCC 1 in 1990 led to the convention. IPCC 2 in 1995 led to the Kyoto Protocol. IPCC 3 led to the uh, um, decision, the final decisions that led to the ratification of the Kyoto Protocol in 2001. IPCC 4 led to uh, um, uh, uh, the Bali Action Plan, and that's when Father Jet and others won the Nobel Peace Prize. Or was that IPCC 3? Maybe I'm missing one IPCC because then after that we have the Paris Agreement, and just before the Paris Agreement was adopted, we had the IPCC 5, and now we have IPCC 6 as we are beginning a next phase of the climate policy process, which is what comes after the Paris Agreement. But when you align the science as IPCC representing the consensus on the science with the policy decisions, you will see this particular discrepancy where you make the decision based on the science to negotiate something, but by the time you are ready to arrive at the decision, the science is already very different because the science is moving very fast, always in flux, as Father Jet hesitated to call it, but it is in flux. And I think we have to improve how these two, science and policy, are converging with each other. So in the Manila Observatory, we have um, a group that's called Klima that works on the basis of the science, the science that our science teams do and the science all over the world to see what we could influence at the international conventions. We do work there at that level. We work very hard to get, for example, loss and damage to where it is now, including getting the Philippines to host it and trying to anticipate what comes next. Uh, and that's the point also for our accepting to do this work as a support unit. When Dr. Lau first raised this with Father Jet and me, both of us immediately said yes. We didn't even think about costs and how we will raise money, the additional things we have to do for it. But we immediately said yes because it will get our hands dirty, if you want to use that word, on how the science is continues to be developed by people directly in the science world, and we have an early glimpse of what that is to help us in terms of our own policy work globally and in the Philippines. The Philippines also being uh, um, uh, an important actor in the global field and in self dealing with all the issues, all the challenges that come with with climate change. So I have almost a dozen lawyers, lot of uh, paralegals, researchers, communications in Klima, but we always tell them that whatever we do, we base it on the science, because I don't want to face my colleagues in Manila Observatory, which is the core of Manila Observatory, the scientists, and for them to tell me that the science that we're using to advance policy uh, is outdated or is wrong. So we are always very conscious of that, and we're hoping eventually that WCRP can play that kind of role uh, as well globally, as it's very very needed. So we're all in, Dr. Hart, for this support. We might have only a few people. Law, of course, is there in his support, but she knows that she has a whole group that she can run to for anything that's needed to make this work. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Lavinia, for the message. And now to give us a presentation on the World Climate Research Program, uh, the Science and Communication Officer of WCRP, Dr. Narelle van der Vel.
Thank you. First, thank you very much for the very warm welcome that we've had here today so far. Thank you, Father Jet, and colleagues at Lao for organizing everything. It's just been amazing. And I think even from what we've learned from this morning's talks and from now as well, the discussions we're having will prove very valuable in how we take forward not only the Academy, but some of the other activities within WCRP as well. So for those of you who have not heard of the World Climate Research Program, it's about just over almost 45 years old now, which is nothing to 160, I must say. But it's almost come to a point in, I guess, 2019, 2020, when we realized that science itself was not enough, that it was very important to connect to the decision making and to the policy, as Tony was just talking about. So I think this is a great way of, understanding what is needed in the region. So I'm really pleased to be able to be here with you today. So as it says there, the aim of the program is principally now to address frontier science questions on future climate. And very important is that these are not only questions which are complex and they span borders, but they're questions that can't be addressed by one country, one nation, one institute. They need us to be truly global in our view, international in how we approach it, and that's all voices, including the Global South. And we know that the program as a whole, up until even now, is probably not as strong in the voices of the Global South, and it's something that we're very actively trying to address. So this is just outlining the vision and mission. I'll let you read that. But I want to point out, particularly here, not only are we talking about the understanding, observing, modeling, and collaborating, but we're also talking about these things in yellow. And we've got education here, which is something that we really do care about in the Academy. We've also got engagement, communication, capacity building, partnerships. And these are all things that, without these, we don't really make meaning of the science. And so these are all very important to us as well. I think that's what I want to glean from this slide. And now we are moving. I don't like to talk about structures because I think actually the importance is on the science. But what I want to point out here is that WCRP is so many different things. You can learn all different types of science, right from oceans through to cycles and budgets, right through to risk, what we've been talking about, some of the things that Father Jet was talking about this morning, right through to physical science. And also important is now from the new strategic plan is that we have also an importance in how decision making is, using the science. My Climate Risk, for example, is an activity which you'll know about here because we've got Daniel here and we're really based on this here. Really about looking at the decisions that are being made and working backwards from that to understand what the science should be. We also have down the bottom here these core projects which you can think of as core research communities. One of them is called Regional Information for Society, and this is quite new. It's all about how, again, that we deal with things like multiple sources of information and uncertainty, and how we go forward in communities, regional, local communities, and really using the science, but also making the science usable. And sorry, I'll just go back. You can see, are you working? You can see down the bottom, we've got the academy, and important, the support unit there. This is the only one. We're starting. So this is the only support unit. So this is actually fairly inspirational, I think, and we're sort of learning as we go. This is just a little bit more about the core projects. I'm not going to go into the detail. You can go to our website. You'll find a page on every one of them. Importantly, what isn't here, and I was realizing this morning, is we didn't have Codex here, which is the coordinated regional climate downscaling experiment, which is now sitting under the Earth System Modeling and Observations project. But it is there. It's very important. Also CMIP, which a lot of you use the data from, the Coordinated Comparison, the Comparison Model Project, I think. Sorry, my brain's gone. Which is, Codex is sitting under RIF, sorry, and CMIP is sitting under ESMO. Sorry about that. But these are, again, flagship programs that we really do need to consider as well. So I think to highlight is there's a huge research community of hundreds and hundreds of scientists working on many different things. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go into these into too much detail, but these are some of the ongoing science foci that WCRP have sort of identified as having a core interest in. These are not going to be sort of staying stationary in time. We are rethinking these as we go forward in terms of, the most important kind of things that science is sort of on the frontier of learning. So things like climate intervention, like research on climate intervention, so that these things come along, we are prepared and we can give good quality information on why you should or should not do something. Tipping points, I think we've got a lot of interest in these right across sectors, not only in terms of sort of the traditional way of thinking if something is tipping into a new regime and is irreversible, but even very high impact events, even if there is a low likelihood, and how to think about these and how to deal with these. I won't go into the rest, but you can see there's climate information, basic climate knowledge. It spans a huge amount of activities. Now, some of you have probably heard about lighthouse activities and wonder what on earth these things are and how they're called like this. But the idea when they were first thought up in 2020 was that these would be ways of pushing forward the research. So you think of a beacon of a lighthouse and finding a way forward for some very critical areas of research where we need to make progress very quickly. So originally, the Academy was one of these. But it soon became very apparent that the Academy would not, end at some point soon, where these about 8 to 10 years lifespan is what they're thought to have. The Academy needs to go on for a much longer period of time. And two of these, the Global Precipitation Experiment and Research on Climate Intervention, were only about a year old now. The other ones were about 4 years old. So I won't go into this. There's a bit of information on these, but you can see them also on the website. My Climate Risk is there, so we can read that as well. But again, I think these are areas of where we want to make critical progress. And I think this brings me to why we need an academy. when these lighthouse activities were conceived in 2020, it was a workshop in Hamburg. And every time we talked about these new topics, we talked about the way we needed to change how science is done. So the lighthouses were, sort of, we need to make rapid progress, new scientific technologies, new institutional frameworks, new ways of doing things. And so how do we do that if we don't also provide the training to do it? And that isn't necessarily just for early to mid-career. Of course, there's a huge amount of need there, but also for senior scientists that maybe do need to change the way that they're doing things. So this is why I've put here the fast pace of change of climate research is making something like the Academy where you can put together all these different types of training in one place, even more important. And also, I guess there's a lot of barriers to different types of training. You might not know what training you need, but then if you figure out which training course that you might want to do, there may be a lot of barriers, whether it's cost or language or proximity, if it's an in-person one, that you may not be able to do the training course of your needs. As well as that, we recognize that there are critical gaps in training, and we need to identify those, and these will change in time, and they also probably change in terms of geographic location. And lastly, we also recognize there was a lot of training going on that was then used once and discarded. And so the idea of the Academy was born. I'm going to pass over now. I think I am, or am I going to go back to JV? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Narel. And now to go into what WCRP Academy is all about, let us welcome the co-chair of the WCRP Academy Steering Group, Dr. Melissa Hart.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking the wrong sort of photo for the current climate. But yes, that was me in Antarctica. So yes, I'm Melissa Hart, co-chair of the Academy. I co-chair the Academy with Chris Leonard, who is just, I can see him up there, who's going to close the session for us today. And I'm also, before I go through the slides, just to put the other members of our steering group on notice that I'm going to come to you at some point just so you can introduce yourselves. Sorry, I should have said that at lunch. Okay, so let me introduce the Academy. Okay, so following on from what Narel was saying, now more than ever, we need climate experts. And it's particularly needed in countries more vulnerable to the negative impacts of climate change. And when we look at the development of climate experts, again, this is something that needs to go beyond national borders. So although there's a large amount of excellent climate science training available, there hasn't been, up until now, a coordination of access to this training. And so we've decided that this provision of climate science training could be made more efficient and sustainable by connecting providers and consumers of training. So if you think, all of you in here, I would hope you would likely have gone through different types of training through your career, and perhaps you might have also been involved in providing training as well. And what we're wanting to do is find where those gaps are and ensure that everybody gets access to the types of training that they need, and it does move beyond individual institutions. So the Academy aims to equip current and future climate scientists with the knowledge, skills, and attributes required to tackle the world's most pressing and challenging climate research questions. The next slide. So this is what it looks like. The Academy here. Is this going to work? I'm just going to play with my hand. So we have what we call the Academy here, where we're connecting, as I said, training providers with climate researchers needing training. And we're also in order to do this, we undertake an annual stock take as well, which really gives us the lay of the land with respect to training opportunities and training availability globally. And I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. So we've found that current and future researchers they're seeking a range of training opportunities outside of formal university education. So even though we've all gone through our degrees, perhaps a lot of us in the room have already gone to the top of the degrees possible, but we still need ongoing training and development throughout our careers. And so what we want to do here is make this training opportunities available and for people to know what options there are out there and how they can be accessed. So organizations are dedicating substantial resources to capacity development, but how can they best attract people to these opportunities? And can these course resources be made available to a wider audience? So as Narelle said, often in the past, people would run an activity, produce a lot of resources, and then it would just disappear and not be used again. So the Academy was created to address these questions. So to number one, do an annual stock take of the lay of the land with respect to what training is available, what people need. And number two, to connect training providers with those needing training, climate science training. So to do this, we have, please check out our website. I don't have a QR code there. Thank you, Lau. We have an online catalogue, and this is our key resource within the Academy. And this is an online catalogue of high-quality climate science training opportunities. So everything that's on there has been vetted. And it currently lists almost 80 training opportunities, both past and upcoming. So the good thing here is you can go back to past training opportunities and access any resources that they have listed there. And we now have more than 40 training providers from both the Global North and Global South registered on the website. So if you are offering training, whether it be a course in Python climate science or a seasonal school in machine learning, as a training provider, you can register, list this course. If you are somebody who thinks, oh, wow, I need to upskill my Python, then you can search for any Python training on the catalogue. And so I'll show you some examples of what this looks like. Yep, perfect. So within the catalogue, we've split the training opportunities into 3 categories based on the IPCC reports. So Working Group 1, Physical Science, Working Group 2, Climate Change Impacts, Adaptation, Vulnerability, Working Group 3, Mitigation. So you can search, if you're particularly looking for a physical science-based course, you can search for physical sciences. And then you can also search by the types of training. So particularly if you're wanting to look for something online, you can check if it's online or if it's in person. And whether it's a conference or a MOOC, a massive open online course, well done me, or a seasonal school. So here's, again, are some of the examples of the events that have run this year here, and you can see that they're all over the world. And I've got another example here that looks really fun, Himalayan Climate Data Field Lab. And so what we're envisaging here is this will be an ever-growing resource where people continue to add all of the events that they have coming up, all of the resources they have available, and then people just use it as their one-stop shop, where I need some sort of research and development, I need some sort of training to further my career. Let me go to the Academy, let's search and see what's available there. Now, to do this, we also needed to know, before starting the development of the Academy, as I said, the lay of the land. So what climate science training looked like already, where the gaps were, and what people really, really needed and wanted. And so this was undertaken by a series of 3 annual stock takes. And so the first one was an online survey through the whole of WCRP in 2021, and we got a large number of respondents there and split over Global South and Global North. And this is just one little tiny piece of the massive amounts of information that came from this survey, but the key was there was a huge demand in the Global South for climate training. So this followed on with the second survey, my apologies, which was an in-depth interview with 14 participants from Survey 1 who are located in the Global South. And one of the key outcomes from this was that climate training opportunities currently available for those in these regions are currently inadequate. We then followed on with our third survey to look at training providers only, so those that offer the training. And this was a combination of research institutions, universities, WMO centres and government. And that was split across Global South and Global North. As I said, these are tiny little snapshots of what we found within these surveys, but these are going to be ongoing. So one of the things we're going to be discussing this week is how we may survey the community in the future and what that may look like. And I will say that these surveys as well could not have come about without engagement from Lau and Laura, who's here, who were particularly involved in the second parts of the surveys and have been drafting up a manuscript with us. So watch this space and really interesting information to be published in the future. So as I said, we are here this week, number one, to launch this wonderful support unit here at the Manila Observatory, and number two, to have our first in-person meeting of our steering group. So tomorrow night we're going to Bohol, and we're going to spend a couple of days locked in a room together in an amazing location and planning our future. And this is our steering group. As I mentioned, my co-chair Chris is at the back, and he will be closing the session. Yep, you've met Narelle here, is from the Secretariat. And then you'll see our steering committee here. And one thing which is, I think, is really lovely about our committee is we're incredibly diverse. We're from all parts of the globe, and we're diverse culturally, with language, geography, with career stage as well. And then I thought it would be interesting for you to all just have a sentence or two from those of us that are here, not everybody's here, about where we're from and what we do, I guess, in our careers, but what brought us to the Academy. So I'm going to start. And then JV, can you help me with a microphone? Yeah, we'll go to Fib after me. Okay, so I am an urban climate scientist in, I guess, my day job. And I'm from Australia. I work with the National Research Centre in Australia on 21st century weather. But one of the key parts of my day job, other than doing research, is I run a graduate program for PhD students. So at any one time, I have 100 PhD students across 5 universities doing climate science PhDs, and I organize, facilitate, lead workshops and training opportunities for them, and it's my favorite part of my job by far. So for me, when I heard about the Academy, it was like, oh, that's what I do in Australia, but on a global scale. So that's why I joined 18 months ago. Now we'll go to Feba.
Hi, I'm Feba. That was during my PhD. The picture was during my postdoc. So I did, when I joined the academy, I was in my PhD. And the reason I joined at that time was because when I was doing my PhD, I had less opportunities. I was in India, and I was the only woman in the entire research labs. And I wanted to learn a lot of things which were not accessible to me. And there was a limit to how much I can depend on my supervisor or my colleagues, because, for example, I had no training in Python or any of the coding languages. And now I'm a modeler, which means every day I'm coding. And for that, there was a gap, and I had to put a lot of extra hours. It's not easy to do everything all by yourself or by YouTube. It would have been nice if there were other climate science related people. So accessibility would have been nice for me, which was why I joined in the beginning. Now I do know a little bit of Python, so it's okay. The picture is important because that was the third time I ever saw snow, and I was super happy. So I told that was in Belgium, and I told my supervisor that I just want to go for a walk, and he said, like, it's snowing, why do you want to go for a walk? So I said, like, because I want to see the snow. And so I ran around and Yeah, the trees look really bleak without the snow, but when it snows, it's really nice. Now I am a modeler. I work with a climate model, general circulation model, and I focus on the Antarctic sea ice extent. It's nice to be here.
Awesome. Thank you very much. To Yun?
Okay. So introduce myself or what?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And what brought you to the academy? Yun?
All right. Okay. Yeah. My name is Chin Duan. I'm from Huahai University. I am a hydrologist by training. I have been affiliated with, not affiliated, I have been part of WCRP GVAX program. I'm a member of the science steering group since maybe 2017. So my research interest is more of like an interface between climate and water. You know, my research area mostly focus on the prediction of floods and droughts, modeling of hydrologic processes, and one of the interesting area I work has to do with what Dr. Faye was talking about, tuning models. And so my group in Huahai University, we have developed a software platform which has all kinds of uncertainty analysis tools available, and it's an open source platform, and anybody who have an interest in doing uncertainty analysis, we welcome you to contact me, and the software is available online. And so also maybe a little bit of my personal history. You know, I was born in China, and then I went to the U.S. in 1984, and I got my graduate degree from University of Arizona, and then I worked in NOAA for about NOAA is National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the U.S. I worked there for about 13 years, and then I worked for Lawrence Livermore National Lab, and then in 2009 I went back to China and studied in Normal University, and then right now in Huahai University. So I really like this WCRP Academy mission, and trying to get all the educational resources and make it accessible to all the scientists around the world. And also, I extend some of my personal invitation for anybody who wants to work with Ohio University. And we also have some kind of sometimes have some kind of funding opportunity to support people to visit us. That's what to say. Welcome you, if you have interest. Okay.
Thank you. And Dorcas?
Hello, everyone. Hello. Yeah, so my name is Len. I'm from Kenya in East. Okay, you can hear me now? Yes. Yeah, so I joined the academy when I was working at Cooperative University of Kenya, teaching disaster risk reduction unit. But since then, I've transited a bit. So I'm now working in a research organization called African Center for Technology. So basically, we do more of action-oriented research. So working with communities, support their climate adaptation and resilience. So I'm in agriculture, food and nutrition security program. So that's where I'm now currently working as the head of the program. And basically my interest in the academy is to integrate and practice. And so because climate change is so dynamic, so my interest is to see how to bridge the gap in terms of skills, capacity, and knowledge, especially for early career researchers. And I'm also thinking of how can the academy also support, especially the young children, so that as they grow up and go through the education system, they have the knowledge of climate and what are the best practices that they can be able to embrace in terms of environmental sustainability. Yeah, so basically that's who I am. That photo was taken last year in April. I was in one of the hotels in Nairobi attending a training on women leadership and management and a fellowship by award. Award is agriculture women in, sorry, what did I say? African Women in Agriculture Research and Development. Yeah, so I'm a fellow in that program of award, which is funded by USAID, and basically focusing on gender responsive agriculture policies and systems. Yeah, so basically that's a brief overview of myself. Thank you.
Did you want to introduce yourself during now or after? Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm having some sort of allergic reaction to something and now my eye's weeping. You're not making me cry, honest. Just something's blooming outside that, yes, it's making my eye weep. Now, my last slide. None of this could happen for us without the support unit, which is why we're here today, and super excited to introduce the support unit, which Lau is going to do. They don't make me cry. When we first started discussions about where a support unit may be for the academy, we only ever had one suggestion, and that was here, and that was because of the work coming from Lau. So now I'm going to hand over to Lau before I cry even more. Oh my goodness.
Sorry for making you cry, Melissa. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for supporting the WCRP Academy. So I'm going to introduce the support unit now. And yeah, I just wanted to mention how it's very surreal for me that the steering group is now here in person. We've been talking about this for months and preparing for this for months. So it's very nice to finally be here in this room and with every one of you supporting us as well. So to start off, so I'm Lau. I'm the manager of the support unit. So I have a long history with the academy, actually. I've been with the academy for the last 2 years. So as Melissa mentioned, I was helping with the stock take. And then just a quick trivia, last year we also launched the WCRP Academy website, and this year, around the same time, we're launching the support unit. So it's very fast-paced the last few years. Passing it on to JV. Quick lang. Quick.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm JV. I'm the International Liaison Officer of the support unit. I also work as a research associate at the Klima Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dina Faye Balyeco. I'm the Science Communication Officer of the Academy. So it's my first time working with WCRP through this initiative. So I and Ikika will be introduced to. We're currently working on different efforts to increase the visibility of the Academy.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenneth Angel Ramirez. I'll be helping them regarding with the digital footprint of the WCRP, helping the WCRP to reach more people using the digital medium for the mission and vision of the WCRP. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Kiko San Juan. I'm an intern working with Klima Center, and I've been assigned to help out in WCRP Academy. As mentioned, I'm just an intern, and so I do know that I still have a lot to learn when it comes to climate science. And I feel like by helping out in WCRP Academy, I'm also helping out lots of people who would like to learn more about climate science, who would like to make an impact. And so I'm really happy to be here with all of you and to help launch the support unit.
Thank you. And just to acknowledge as well our honorary member, Laura. We love you, Laura. Thank you. All right. So for my presentation, I'm just gonna pull up this structure figure again, although Narelle mentioned maybe structures are not our favorite. But then I just wanted to point out this tiny box called the support unit. As Narelle mentioned, the academy used to be a lighthouse activity. So it was a timed activity that's supposed to end after X years. But then we realized, oh, we need to have the academy as a long-term part of the structure. And to support the academy, we have the support unit. And it's the very first of its kind at WCRP. So the rest of the core projects are supported by international offices. So not only that, the support unit is also the first to be located in the Global South for WCRP. So we're very happy and honored to be the one to be hosting the support unit here at the Manila Observatory. And it has been mentioned, or sorry, discussed a lot why, there is a need to do this in the Global South. So we need more scientists in the Global South, more training in the Global South. But I just wanted to pull up this quote from the Kigali Declaration. So last year, we launched the Academy website in a conference called Open Science Conference. So it's an opportunity for climate scientists from looking at different areas to come together and basically create a roadmap of where we want climate science to go in the next few years. And all of this is summarized in the Kigali Declaration. And out of the, I think, 2-page stipulations, there are 2 that specifically refers to the Global South, and this is one of them. So the climate science community commits to identifying and implementing timely actions to give equal visibility, voice, and access to opportunity to early career scientists, marginalized scientists, and historically disadvantaged scientific communities in the work, leadership, and global influence of WCRP. So earlier, we talked about, the disparity between global north and global south, rich and poor, but actually this inequality is also very much true in the climate science community as well. So a lot of the opportunities and the access to opportunities are concentrated in the global north. That's why we are making an effort to really focus on the training needs of the global south to not just level the playing field, but open doors for everyone. And making sure that the support unit is based in the global south is an effort to really make good on this commitment. Okay, so why the Manila Observatory? So I think this morning the steering group had a really good impression of the work that the Manila Observatory does. After just meeting 2 laboratories, we have more. So we are really doing a lot of work in climate and disaster science. And I can say that our work is not just here in the Philippines, but also in the Southeast Asian region and globally. So aside from that, we also make an effort to connect science with policy and practice through the Klima Center. And we do make it a point to always work hand in hand with vulnerable communities. So earlier, Doc Faye and Doc Celine were talking about, how will this information be received and be used by the communities. And lastly, for me, this is the most important. Why the Manila Observatory is an excellent host is because we ourselves are a vibrant community of young scientists. So we have a lot to contribute in terms of experience. How do we actually attract young scientists to this field, and how do we keep them in the global south so that we build capacity in the global south? Yes. All right. So with that, I want to finish by outlining the different ways that you can engage with the academy with the help of the support unit. So I think, okay, sorry. This is our QR code and our website link if you want to go on there. But our presence is mainly online right now through our website. And as mentioned by Melissa earlier, we have a catalog of training. So if you are a training provider, you can register as a training provider with us and add your events to our catalog. So right now, we are following the structure of the IPCC. So we have topics covering physical science, also adaptation and mitigation, but we are considering adding more based on our discussion with the different groups as well. So if you are potential or interested in getting climate training, you can subscribe to our newsletter. So we are aiming to publish this every month so you can get to know what are the upcoming opportunities. And of course, you can always go to our catalog and search for all of these events. We also have stock take surveys, as mentioned earlier. We already have one with training recipients and another with training providers. But these are, I would say, preliminary, and we want to do more in-depth stock takes in the future. So we would really be happy if you can participate in them. And then this is my last slide. We are also hoping to build more partnerships, especially with early career research networks. We want to make sure that the academy is serving the needs of these specific communities. And if you are a training provider, we would love to hear from you about any best practices you have in climate training. So specifically, we want to improve the diversity, inclusion in our climate training. And everyone talks about indigenous knowledge, but in practice, it's really hard to find an example of a training that really captures and presents indigenous knowledge and integrate it with the science. So any best practices on that would also be helpful. All right, so that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Melissa and Dr. Lau. So before we close the launch, we'll call the presenters and receive questions from the audience or from the attendees. They will bring chairs in front. So let's invite our speakers. One more chair is coming. So you won't. Please direct your question. We have a microphone here at the center.
Courses offered by the WCRP free for free of charge, especially for those who want to avail it from the developing countries like the Philippines.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, okay, I'll take this one. You take. So one of the key is that we within the academy don't offer the training ourselves. What we do is we partner with the training providers. So the training providers are able to list their courses, and we can be the one-stop kind of shop for people to find the training. So it's going to very much depend on the training provider, but within the information that they provide in the catalogue, they will mention if there's any costs involved, so you can actually check and see. Yeah.
I just want to also mention that when the World Climate Research Program does conferences or very big meetings, there are often training events that are alongside those. And it really depends. If it's an online course, then it will almost certainly be free. If it's an in-person one, then a lot of the costs will be mitigated, but it may be competitive. So then it depends really on and who applies for it and how many that they can actually take on that training course. But that also highlights again why it's really important to take those training courses and all that work that goes into them and make sure that it's accessible later for anybody who may want to just go on and look at the different presentations, maybe learn a little bit about this, even if you can't necessarily attend the course. And I'd say also, especially sort of undergraduate level, sometimes those courses are really useful for them. They may not be right at the level to attend them yet, but it's still very instructional, so that we can make those accessible. That would be really useful, I think.
Questions from the participants? Other questions? Yes.
Well, they're thinking. So Faye from RCS Laboratory as well. So if, for example, there are gaps that you see, does the academy have a way of like recommending to the providers that there is interest in this topic, but there's still no one providing that training?
Thank you. Actually, we have already received inquiries from providers wanting to get information precisely on what topics are most interesting for different target audiences. And what we are doing now is we are working on our journal paper, which will publish the results of the stocktake survey, and it has information regarding that. But I think we do have means to connect with training providers and highlight some of the training needs. So, for example, we are really thinking about the role of social media to call for trainings led by women, for example, to fill the gaps that we currently see in our catalog.
Questions? Other questions? Questions? No more questions? Okay. So I'll be the one to ask, just to round this up. So since we are at the launch of the support unit, I just want to ask, what are your expectations? How do you see this moving forward? What do you hope for in the next year or next 2 years that could potentially happen with the academy and support unit?
I'm the only one who hasn't spoken, so therefore I have to answer. we're going to be discussing a lot of that in the next 3 days that we have, and it's really exciting. One of the things we're going to imagine is if we had limitless amount of money, what would we do as the WCRP Academy? And that I think is going to be a really interesting and very cool exercise. But we can brainstorm all of these different things. In the short term, at least, we will be always looking for money, really, to fund the support unit and the activities of the academy. The question that was asked earlier about, can I get funding to attend a course? Eventually, where we'd like to be with that is perhaps we could have a particular part of our budget that is to sponsor folk to go to different types of courses that Melissa alluded to. It would be competitive. But those are the types of things that we would like to think about.
Narelle just reminded me of an important event that we're planning for next year, which is a workshop on mentoring and leadership development. And what that actually will be is not actually training for being a mentor, but actually learning from those that have run successful mentoring and leadership development programs, and seeing what we can take from them and practice sharing, I guess, across different communities, and how we can then apply some of those cases and some of those examples within the WCRP and beyond. So this is, again, we'll be developing over the next couple of days on Bohol, but talking about where we're going to hold it, who we're going to invite, so hopefully people from outside of WCRP as well. Some really lovely examples of mentoring programs out there within our discipline and beyond, and getting everybody in a room and saying, okay, so what does this look like? What's the best way that we can ensure that people are having this mentoring, the sponsorship, the support that they need in order to further their career? So this will be a workshop for next year to start with, and then beyond, I'm really excited to see where it goes, but hoping that we can really launch on that and how we do mentoring in the whole discipline.
Thank you, Dr. Lau.
Yeah, so actually for me, since we are really just starting off, my goal is really to make sure that the support unit is, more established in the next few years. And I personally want to see us transition from an online presence to, we are more accessible in person in the different events. I just really feel like we have an opportunity to build a community in the academy, especially of young and aspiring climate scientists. So I want to kick that off somehow in the next few years.
Okay. So, Ila?
So I think a lot of the things, so Ila from Klima. So I'm not a scientist, and some of my colleagues here as well. So, but a lot of the work that we're doing involves a lot of climate science, but it's very difficult to communicate it to communities and how projects are developed as well. And Doc Lau would know about this. The climate rationale is one of the most difficult things that is difficult to decipher basically for the local communities. So is it possible to also include in a training program for non-scientists, like a training program that could simplify climate science for the non-scientists?
Anyone?
I think we've had a lot of discussions over the time as well about who our audience is when it comes to training, and a lot of discussion around training for stakeholders and communications for stakeholders. And so I think, yeah, again, on our wish list, and you heard Dorcas got wish lists of beyond that as well, into members of community and such. So I think in the first instance, it's ensuring that those that are already doing awesome work in this space, which we saw some examples of here this morning, by the way, who are running workshops or have any resources and such that can be accessible to people outside of just their work environment can actually post these on the catalogue and be shared beyond their local community. I think that's a really first step towards this, and then let's see what goes from there.
I'd also say that climate science is moving towards having a necessity for transdisciplinary science. And so WCRP is traditionally very physical climate science based. But that being said, we know that we can partner with different organizations who do things like policy, like CLIMA, for example, or they do many other types of work. It could be right across all different types of, everything from economics to financial groups. I'm working with a big financial company at the moment because they're super interested in tipping points and they don't know what to do, for example. So there's a lot of ways that we can interact with many communities, and I don't think we have any major barriers around the catalogue in terms, as long as it's useful to the community that we're trying to serve. And I think going forward, we're going to have to widen our view, because otherwise the science that we do is not going to be as useful as we want it to be.
So maybe I can just add. So one of the things that we found out during our stock take, especially with the Global South scientists, is that the Global South climate scientists have a very real need to pick up science communication skills so they can be more effective in their job. So they are also clamoring this. And at the same time, a lot of them spend time advising government. So this is a very specific need of Global South scientists specifically. So that's why we are very interested in science communication training for our scientists. But we also do recognize, the need for non-scientists to understand the science. But I think that a slightly different angle as well. But yeah, I just wanted to point out that the scientists themselves want to be able to communicate better with the lay people. So we are hoping to address that need.
Okay, thank you. And yes.
Hello, good afternoon. I am James from the Ateneo School of Government, and actually Dean Tony is our former dean at Ateneo School of Government. I'm specifically from the Executive Education Program. In Executive Education Program, we provide short courses. We turn some of our courses in Masters in Public Management into short courses. Currently, we're working with Tara Climate Foundation in one of our courses, developing modules for LGUs. And we also have some plan next year to run a short course on futures thinking in climate change. And one of the things I'd like to ask, I actually have two questions. First question will be, for example, it's actually interesting to be here, since we're also a training provider. And my question would be, what if our courses prioritize local participants? And since WCRP mostly is accessible globally, right? And what if our participants, which we are targeting, are locals? For example, we will be having modules on just energy transition, and these modules are based on local context and situation. Second would be, do we have any data on how many of the Philippine, let's say, how many from the Philippines subscribe to WCRP Academy?
Thank you. Anyone from the panel?
So maybe I can start. I'm not sure about, I think we do have that information, like how many are subscribed to the WCRP newsletter, but I will get back to you later. We'll just check the website first. But yes, we do want to encourage local programs. So in fact, right now, the language of most of our trainings is in English. And we really, really do want to have more diverse courses that are offered in different languages. And another result of our stock take is that, especially in a given region where one country specifically has little capacity, they look to their neighboring countries for guidance as opposed to looking to the global north because it's more relevant for their context. So I think in that sense, even though it's very local to the Philippines, it might still be valuable, not even just to Filipinos, but to our neighboring countries who might have the same vulnerabilities or the same hazards that we are facing.
Anyone else from the panel? Okay, Narelle?
I think the only thing I would add to that is that we know that a lot of the responses have to be local to regional. And if we're not training on those levels, we've got a problem.
Okay. So now we close the question and answer portion. We invite our presenters to go back to their seats and actually call the co-chair of the WCRP Academy, Dr. Christopher Leonard, to give the closing message.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Chris Leonard. I work at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and if my mugshot was up there, you would see me, behind me our big hall at the University of Cape Town. The name of that hall is the Sarah Bartman Hall, and we changed it probably 3 years ago now. It used to be called the Jamison Hall, and if our history is, Jamison was one of the colonial army officers who basically caused the deaths of thousands of Afrikaans-speaking farmers in our country. So eventually we managed to change the name. And it's called Sarah Bartman Hall in honor of a lady named Sarah Bartman. And she was a lady who had characteristically Southern African features, so much so that the Europeans were taken by this, and they actually shipped her off to Germany to be an exhibit, really, which is horrific, and we eventually got her back to South Africa. But the reason that's my mugshot is a kind of a kickback against what we have been indoctrinated over the last 2 centuries about into Western ways of thinking, in terms of the way we live, the way we ought to live, and in our context, the way we do academic research. We still very much follow Western models of academic research, which is both good, but it neglects a very large part of what we know in our indigenous knowledge systems, in the way that we interpret the world through our different types of worldviews. And this is where the academy really tries to come in. In addition, so I work at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, but probably the most important thing about me that I could tell you is that I have 2 young kids. One, they just turned 9 and 11 years old. So in 2050, they will be living through this climate change thing that we're talking about every single day, it feels like. And they will be experiencing the risks that we try to understand now at the local, regional scale and at the global scale. And understanding those risks, for me, is really important to prepare them for what they're going to have to face when they're our age and possibly older. And then what about my grandchildren? What kind of world are they going to be in? Because this is the risk that they're going to face. This is the IPCC risk propeller that we made. I'm a lead author in the Africa chapter of the IPCC in Working Group 2. And we pushed this risk propeller really hard because it used to only consist of these 3 wings, so hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. And we pushed really hard to get response into this risk propeller because that all determines your risk. So this is saying that the risk that you face is a function of hazard, which is the climate hazard, how vulnerable you are, so your context, the exposure that you have to that particular hazard. So a heavy rainstorm is going to affect someone living in a shack or informal settlement differently to is going to affect someone who lives in a house, like me. And then also your risk is a function of how you're going to respond. So what you do, if someone tells you this is the risk you face, you can take a response to that that is either going to make ameliorate that risk, so it'll help you, or you can take a response that's actually going to exacerbate your risk. It's going to make your risk worse. So understanding risk is a function of these four things, and that's what I'm trying to do for my particular context in South Africa and Africa as a whole, really. But underpinning all of this are two things that are really important to understand. The first is vulnerability, which is not my space as a climate scientist. But the second is hazard, and this was said this morning. Unless we understand the climate hazards that we are going to face, that we are facing currently and that we will be facing into the future, we can't get a good idea of the risks that we're going to live through and that our kids are going to live through. So therefore, our response to that risk is going to be ill-informed. We won't be able to make good decisions based on what we've got. So we try and understand all of this, and as the Academy, what we want to try and do at the moment is develop the community that can understand this climate hazard part better than what we do. And that is at local, as was mentioned earlier, at local, regional, perhaps continental scales to understand that. So that's really what drives me. I want to understand what does climate change do to regional climate risk where I live and where I work. As Narelle showed us earlier, one of the roles of the WCRP is to address frontier science questions, but those frontier science questions need a global community because addressing one question in one place may have implications for another place. And then also, as I mentioned earlier, most of our climate science has been done through a Western framing of science and interpreted largely through a Western lens, a Western philosophy of climate science. And that's what we need to grapple with. Because we live in the global south, our ethical frameworks, our worldviews are very, very different to the worldviews and ethical frameworks of the global north. So we need to bring that in to understanding risk in order to actually prepare our countries, prepare our people for what's coming at the moment. So again, what we try and do in the Academy is build that component of the scientific community that can understand climate risk. And we do want to expand that out further in time, but for the moment we're just thinking about climate science and climate scientists. As Lau mentioned earlier, from our surveys, we found that the Global South scientists in general think that the training that they have received is inadequate for where they actually would like to be in terms of their capacity, their personal capacity development. And I think we all experience that and we all know that. So what we try and do as the Academy is facilitate the opportunities to address that capacity deficit really that we all experience. And we heard from Father Jose earlier that the MO has been around for almost 160 years, which is a tremendous amount of experience and legacy that it carries. So there is, within this place that we're in at the moment, a lot of resource to actually address some of the questions that would then speak to understanding the risks that are faced here in the Philippines, and that's already being done through some of the research that we heard about earlier too. Then furthermore, it's fine understanding the climate risk, but then how does that get interpreted or translated or co-developed into messaging that then can move into the policy space? So we can take action as individuals based on what we know, but in order for a real change to be effected, it needs to be in the policy space and perhaps even in the economic space, because maybe economics drives policy more than climate drives policy. So how do we then take what we understand in terms of our climate science into that policy space to then actually try and develop the world into something that we would like our kids to grow up in? So again, this is where the Academy is wanting to go and where it's wanting to take and build an entire community that can address these types of questions. I'll end off with the significance of having the support unit at the MO can't really be understated. It is, as Lars showed us earlier, it's the only support unit within the WCRP that is in the Global South. It's going to therefore facilitate a global south interpretation of how we do things. And we do things differently to the global north. There's no doubt about that. Having been in the academic game for a long time now, we really do think differently, and it's often clashes with the way that the global north think. But they are not right. They're also not wrong. But there's a merging that needs to take place within these two thought framings, I suppose. So having the support unit here is incredibly significant, even in the life of the WCRP, or as it goes forward. So that is super exciting. And just as an aside, the support that were it not for Lau and for Laura in the early days of the academy, I don't think we would be here, because they have done such an amazing job with the academy so far. So I'm absolutely certain for the future of the academy that it has a good future, purely because it's here at the Manila Observatory with Lau supporting us. So yeah, I could disappear tomorrow and the academy would still be super strong as it goes on. So yeah, and I think that's where I would like to end it. Thank you so much everyone for coming out, for listening to us talk, and I hope that it's been useful just to understand what we're doing here and the significance of what's happening now. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chris. So now we end the support unit launch. Before we go for stacks, let's have a group photo first here with our attendees here. Okay, let's go. Let's go.